Hello and welcome to week 2 of a video series on teaching science in Idaho during the COVID-19 crisis. I'm Riley DeVito, the State Department of Education Idaho Science Coach, and this week we'll be talking about creating online communities with our students. Online communities help us keep connected with our students in a couple of ways. The first is that it allows teachers to communicate with students in both an organized and a purposeful way. If you're experiencing anything like I have the last couple of weeks, my email inbox is full of unread emails. I'm having trouble keeping track of which students or parents I've already replied to. I'm having trouble keeping track of all of the incoming notifications from Google Classroom. It's really overwhelming. So creating sustained online communities allows all of that interaction to be focused into one place instead of having to hunt down emails from all different locations. So that helps us keep organized. It also is very intentful and purposeful for students, so they know that when they're logging into their online community that is what they're doing there, not all the other things that a lot of these websites like Google Classroom have, where you've got assignments, questions, due dates, all sorts of things. The online community really centralizes that into that community element. The second piece here is that it allows students to communicate with each other. We have to remember that student social structures were really dismantled when schools suddenly closed, and a lot of them don't have the skills in order to keep that a healthy aspect in their lives. So if we can facilitate online communities that are not only focusing on the academics, but also encouraging students to communicate with one another, then we're really hitting some of those socio-emotional needs as well. The final piece here of the online communities is that it's a creative way for us to participate in real-world science that's still addressing the Idaho science standards. And I hope that you'll find that a lot of these resources are actually excellent to take past this experience and past this online teaching experience, and you might consider using them in the classroom next year. So before I dive into the resources that I have for you today, I want to talk a little bit about the Idaho Science Standards SEPs and what those are. So science and engineering practices are the verbs that are found in each standard. There are 8 in total within NGSS and the Idaho Science Standards, and we're going to focus on 4 of them today. So the first one is construct an argument with evidence. And I have an example here of a kindergarten standard, but I want to make it very clear that these SEPs are through lines throughout K-12. So you will find construct an argument with evidence in high school, middle school, and the K-5 standards. So for example, this one is construct an argument supported by evidence for how plants and animals can change the environment to meet their needs. So the content they're learning, what's called the DCI, the disciplinary core idea, is that plants and animals change their environment. But the actual action statement of how the student would demonstrate their learning is in the SEP, that construct an argument. We're going to take a look at a resource where students are asked to do that. We're also going to look at something that's asking students to analyze and interpret data, and that is a 2nd grade standard. It's shown here, but again, through line K-12. We're also going to look at one that focuses on making observations. And our last resource that we're going to look at today is communicating scientific information. So let's start with construct an argument with evidence. So I want to show you what Kialo is. So Kialo is a site that allows students to have discourse with each other and dialogue with each other and pro-cons back and forth. So if you want to start a discussion with your students, and I think for younger elementary school students, it might be best if the teacher sets all of this up and then the students read and maybe respond to it. But for older students, middle and high school students, they can be participating in creating the discussion as well. So you'll click this create discussion icon in the upper right-hand corner, and you'll want to select private because there are students involved in proprietary reasons. For the first time doing this, and definitely for younger students, single thesis is probably the way to go. And that's really where you have a thesis and there's a pro-con on both sides. The multiple theses would be for students who have practiced with the single thesis before, or who are comfortable having this style of discussion where you can actually present multiple ideas under that one theme. So I'm going to show you how to set up a single thesis. So your title here would be whatever you want it to be. I'll just put sample. And you can add background information, links, set the language if you're teaching an ELL class. You can upload a background image or a title image if you'd like. And then that's as easy as it is to create one. And then inviting students, you just hit this invite button, and you'll want to click on this participant invite link and enable that. So, and that's just a link that you can post into whatever you've been using to communicate with students, whether that's email, a platform, your website, that's the link that will take them to the specific discussion you're wanting them to engage in. Over here, you can select what their role will be. So possibly for younger students, you might want to stick with viewer. And again, you as the teacher set up the whole discussion. For older students, writer, editors, and admins. Admin is great for if you want students to take a leadership role in the process. You can encourage them to be in this admin role. You can also enter in emails if you have an easy way to do that at your school. That's another way to invite students. So once you've invited kids and they click on that link, they'll be brought to the discussion page where your discussion topic is posted here. They can get in and post pros and cons to the topic. So I'll show you one that I created a little bit earlier based off of that kindergarten standard that I showed you. So organisms change their environment would be the claim. A pro might be that squirrels dig holes to put food in. That's changing their environment. Another one that you might do is tree roots crack rocks. And that's actually the language in that kindergarten standard if you look at the specific standard booklet. So these two are pros, but a student might come in here with a con that says, yeah, but the earth always goes back. And you can actually click on these individual arguments and then do the pro cons for those. So you can continue to break out, and you'll see that this little flow chart up here changes as you move in the discussion. And at any time you can click back to the main discussion area. Students can come in and comment on each other. So this little one shows that there's been one comment here, and students can post their comments. You can see who's posting each of the comments, so you can keep track of which students are engaging in the discussion. In addition to that, you can upvote certain settings. I have them disabled for this particular question, but you can upvote different things to say how much does this statement contribute to the overall thesis. So for the younger grades, you might just have them do the voting procedure or just the commenting. And for middle school and high school, actually having them come in and participate in the pro cons. When they make a claim, they can also add links so that they are forced to cite their, do their citations, follow digital citizenship, and continue practicing what you've probably been practicing in your classrooms. The last thing I want to show you on Kialo is down here, there is Kialo for Public, which is great for really getting ideas going, investigating topics. However, some of the content is more mature, so I encourage you to stick to the Kialo for Educators because that really filters it and allows you to keep your students in a safe environment. So that's one way that we can construct an argument with evidence is through Kialo. The second one I want to talk about is an analyze and interpret data resource. So this is a really fun one, and I'll show you how I got into this seafloor observatory. So this is called Zooniverse, and it is people-powered research. So it is research projects that rely on the outside community, outside people to come in and analyze the data that they can then use for their research. So if you are interested in doing that, this upper left-hand corner where it says projects, you can come in here and choose a particular theme that you might be interested in. So I'm interested in nature. I am a big nature fan, and it will show you all of the current projects that are active that students can participate in. So the one that I had pulled up was the Seafloor Observatory. And students will just click this Get Started, and it'll walk through some instructions on how to do it and how it works. And I've already done that on mine. So this one really is just you watch this 10-second clip and you point out the organisms that are found, the adorable little fish and some sea anemones, and you'll point out how many there are and how at what time in the video you saw them. So for example, we can do the sea anemone, which let's see if I can find it. The deeplet sea anemone, it shows a picture and gives a description to make sure we all know what we're clicking on. And I can go back and watch the video and say, okay, I saw them through the whole video. So I saw 4 or more. And the first time I saw it was right when the video started. So I can identify that. If I see something else, I can additionally identify it. And there's a fish in there that I can identify. The other piece of this is that you can actually have conversations through this. So there is discussion boards on each one of these projects where students can get in and talk to each other. It's this talk icon here. And that's really that online community piece if you want to facilitate that. So that's analyzing and interpreting data. Our next one is making observations. And this is something that I personally underutilize in my own classroom, which is virtual field trips. And I'll just show you this one from the Smithsonian. So the Museum of Natural History has virtual tours that you can take. And my favorite part is to go to these past exhibits because they're things that, probably not going to see at the Smithsonian ever again. So it's cool that they have them cataloged and that students can look through them. And all you do is you click on a specific exhibit that you want to look at. So let's see, I want to look at dinosaur number 4, and it will pull up what that looks like in the museum, and you can move around. You can zoom in on things. These pictures have up close where you can actually look at the specific exhibits that you're interested in. And I would encourage you to open it up to students just exploring places. So there's one for Yellowstone, there's the Leaning Tower of Pisa, I think the mangroves have one. There's all kinds of virtual field trips out there if you just Google that, but the Smithsonian has some really great organized ones. So how I would create an online community surrounding that is through Padlet. So Padlet allows students to get in and post different things in different ways. So when I set up a Padlet for the virtual field trips, I clicked on a map option. And when you'll set it up, it's just one of the options. So this is really cool because wherever students choose to go on a virtual field trip, they can drop a pin and then write their comments. So for example, one for Yellowstone National Park, they could have seen Old Faithful erupt from that and dropped a pin right there. So students can just get in here, they can type in the place that they saw. So I can do Pisa, Italy, and it'll drop the pin, and then the students can type what they experienced. Other students can get in here and actually read what other kids wrote. They can comment on those. They can't edit or delete those posts, which is really good, but they can get in and they can edit, they can read what their other fellow students are doing. So that's a really fun way just for students to make observations. And I think that appeals to the K-12 spectrum. The last resource I want to show you today is communicating scientific information. And one of the best places that communicate scientific information is Science Friday. So Science Friday is put together through NPR, and not only do I love listening to them on the radio every time it's Friday and I'm in the car, but they also have podcasts, they have stories which work really well with NGSS and the storylines through NGSS. But this Educate option is actually really what I want to focus on right now. So Educate gives lessons, ideas, and activities for K-12 students, and you can filter that through grade levels. So for example, we can click on a 6-8 grade level. If your principal is asking you to spend 1 to 2 hours of science a week, you can click on that, and then you can narrow that down by subject. So let's say life science, for example, which I don't know what this mutualism one is, but that looks very fun. So we can look at organisms on the move though, and it will give you description. There are videos, and these are all science research-based videos and things. There are activities. So here's like the activities materials listed here with some simple supplies that most kids would have at home if they wanted to do this project. So Science Friday is great for, it's scientists communicating about science, and then students can communicate about that. And how I would have them do that is back in Padlet, they can create, or you can create this discussion board where students just hit this plus and it opens up one of these options, and they can fill it out and possibly do a summary or post a picture or post a link to the article that they were reading on Science Friday. So that's just 4 different resources for each one of these different SEPs that you might consider using to create an online community. I have 5 tips for successful online communities because it's very easy for students to not engage or for students to not feel like it is truly a community. So the first thing that I would suggest is insist on appropriate digital citizenship. And that's something that is kind of a buzzword in especially like one-to-one schools, but it is really, really important, especially as we are moving to digital learning. So insist that students are not copying and pasting other people's work from the internet without proper citations. Insist that they're being respectful and kind as they're communicating back and forth with each other through the digital medium. Make sure digital citizenship is a conversation that you have up front before starting your online communities with your students. The second tip is comment on your students' work, and that's sort of in lieu of you grading their papers and turning it back. And students find a lot of value in when we grade their things and we leave feedback for them. It helps them know how to improve, or it helps them know what they did good on. So we can mirror that in the online community setting. The third tip is make sure that everyone gets a reply. If you are doing something where you want people and students to comment on each other, make sure that each student's original post is getting a reply, whether that's you or you set it up in a way where each student is having that opportunity. It's important for them to feel heard and like they are an active member of that community. The fourth tip is give students leadership roles. And that might apply a little bit more to the middle school and high school or upper elementary. But in like Kialo, for example, or in Padlet, if you give students specific roles, it can increase engagement. And I've seen significant success with that with my students who are a little bit more shy in the online community. When I gave them a leadership role, they've really stepped up and participated more. The last tip would be that small groups might be a better way for you to go. So instead of creating one Padlet for all 200 students that you may have, you might consider just doing several Padlets in smaller groups, or Kialo has a way to set up groups. You might consider looking at those to make those online connections a little bit more meaningful. If you need any help, if you need any support in these, if you want to bounce some ideas off or you have some questions on how to set up any of those resources, please, please, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can email me at devito.idahosciencecoach@gmail.com. All of the links are in the following slide and in the YouTube video description. Know that the State Department of Education is here to support you in any way that we can. Here are the links for all of the resources that I showed you today. They are also all accessible on iPads and Android devices. So that has been vetted and they work very smoothly in all those platforms. This presentation has been brought to you by the State Department of Education. You got this.